Okay, so I was down in Atlanta yesterday, as you know, as part of our On the Road segment, taking stock of the economic recovery in America. And while I was down there, I spoke with the UPS CEO, Scott Davis, at his headquarters. Now, he weighed in on jobs, and he also said that free global trade is key to job creation back here in the United States.
The facts are the facts, that free trade works. You know, it's created so many jobs in the U.S. Actually, 1 out of every 5 jobs in the U.S. relates to export and global trade. In Canada yesterday, 1 out of every 3 jobs in Canada relates to global trade. So it works. The U.S. is still the biggest manufacturer in the world, the biggest exporter in the world. So I think it's something that the last thing we need to do is get into a cocoon, because the rest of the world will go on without us.
But when you talk to the lawmakers, for instance, or you talk to others who are against free trade, I mean, they must think to themselves, well, you know, of course you would say that because you're UPS and you benefit from, you know, free trade and having, you know, goods flow through borders. I mean, how do you make that argument so that, you know, it becomes less about UPS and then more about, you know, the principles of it?
I think if we just look at the prosperity around the world that's been created due to free trade, and then the advantageous things that our U.S. citizens can consume right now based on free trade, lower prices, more access to things. I think that it's a easy sell. Like any economist will take a look at this thing and say, free trade works. It absolutely works for everybody. Mm-hmm. Now, we do have to do a better job on retraining people who are displaced. I think that both business and the government has not done a good enough job on retraining people who are displaced by global trade, lose their jobs. And I think both of us have to do a better job at that. The stimulus program had money in there for trade adjustment to help people, both in manufacturing and in the services. Mm-hmm. That's a good first step.
Well, as you're talking about these issues, about free trade issues, and you're in D.C., you know, discussing that on a Hill, I'm just curious from a CEO perspective, because there's been so much almost anti-Wall Street, anti-corporate backlash in a way. How do you deal with that, or or I guess even before we get to that, you know, is there policy that has happened over the last, let's say, you know, 12 months or so that you don't agree with in Washington that you wish would change at this point?
Well, I think that there's always some policy that you're not going to agree with. I think in general this administration is going in the right direction. I think they believe in free trade. I think the question is how fast do you move on it? And I think things like the free trade agreements with Korea and Colombia and Panama are great examples for us to show that we believe in free trade. I think Buy America proposal was horrible symbolism for the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. I think by the time it got watered down, it didn't have a huge impact, but it was a bad symbol and gave a lot of countries around the world an opportunity to do their own protectionist policy.
Right.
So that was a mistake.